Hey guys, this is Scranton MMA Talks. This is Frank.
I'm Jess,
Tyler.
and today we're going to talk about how to be a supportive jiu-jitsu parent, or I guess martial arts parent in general. So we have a lot of topics. We're going to try to get through them, in a timely manner.
Yeah, and use this as a guideline to be able to help your kids progress through their jiu-jitsu journey,
Mm-hmm.
And if you have questions about it, ask us.
Yes, please.
Mm-hmm. So the first one is prepare your child for class.
So when we talk about preparing your child for class, make sure that they bring their gi. We get that if you only have one gi and it's 30, they maybe trained the day before. You might not have it the next day because it's being cleaned. But try to make sure that they always have their gi. That's especially certain weeks where we do certain moves that require or make at least our life a lot easier if they have the gi on.
Yeah.
Make sure they have water. It's very hot.
Yeah.
And of course encourage them to listen and pay attention in class.
Yes.
Yep.
Anything else on being prepared?
No, that was...
I sold a spotlight on that one.
That's fine. Next one is no wins or losses. So basically, not focusing on how many times your child specifically wins a round or loses a round, but focusing on how they're progressing, themselves, and not focusing on how they're doing against another child or children.
So one example I'll use is, let's say your child always gets taken down by a certain kid in class, right? Instead of being like, oh, you lost against that kid, you could be like, wow, you lasted so much longer. This time it was once that whole round they only took you down.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff.
Yeah. And even focusing on progression with their behavior at home, or
Yeah.
Maybe how they're doing in school. That's I think that's worth noting.
Our goal is, when we teach children at Scranton MMA, our goal is to make sure your kid knows how to defend themselves, learn discipline, and try to be more well-behaved overall.
Yeah.
We hear a lot of parents always compliment us, not only if their kid was able to defend themselves, but, hey, my kid's getting better grades in school now.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff. And it's the little stuff that all helps contribute to a child's growth, and one of them being martial arts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and training isn't a competition. I'm a competitive person, but even for myself, you gotta separate training at the gym versus going to a tournament.
Yes.
It's different. So everyone does learn at different rates and everything like that. So you have to take all that stuff into account, and just overall, training, when we're doing the sparring rounds and everything like that, you're just trying to get better each time. It's not about the win.
And this goes with adults as well. If you look at your training rounds as competition, like Tyler said, you'll go bananas quick. We'll hit other topics that go to this, but this it's a hard skill to get a hold of,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next one is good sportsmanship. Being respectful of training partners, I think, is really important. Sometimes, again, with the winning and losing thing, the kids themselves get a little caught up in that, and they get excited when they win a round. But in our eyes, we just see, here's what child A, did better with today. Here's what they need to work on. Same with child B. There's never really a win or a lose. So maybe just reminding them that they're not out there, to, boast about winning. It's more about respecting your training partner, and just having a nice time.
And the flip side of it is also, if your kid doesn't get the better end of that round, try to discourage sore loserness.
Yeah.
If that's a word.
That's important. Yeah. I
But,
think that's important. Too.
because
We see that sometimes.
as your kid progresses, even if maybe they go with a kid that hasn't been training as long, but maybe the kid's older, maybe the kid weighs a little bit more, maybe the kid's a little faster. You see that with the adults a lot as well. Like, you know,
Just
some
more athletic humans
Yeah.
come in here.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that you're bad at what you're doing. You have a new problem to solve.
Yeah, and all the kids are training, you know, pretty much about like what 2-3 times a week, you
Yeah.
know, so
Yeah.
they're all progressing at relatively the same rate,
Yeah.
you know, so as one kid is getting better, your kid is getting better.
Yeah.
You know, so matches might look similar, but especially for us watching the rounds, we actually can see and know what we're looking at to say like, okay, he's hip escaping better. You know, they get to mount, and rather than trying to just hold them down, now they're starting to open up their game to trying submissions and
Yeah.
stuff. So there's little progressions built into it, and I think it's harder to do this stuff on other people that are training than
Yeah.
someone that isn't training.
Yes. The next one, a lot of these kind of flow into each other, but positive reinforcement. So just reminding them about all the good things that they've done in class. I don't think we've ever had a parent who's been, you know, so belligerent, like, oh, you didn't do this well in class, but it's just a quick reminder. I think it's good for kids in general. Just keep them
Yeah.
focused on the good things.
Yeah, and some of that positive reinforcement could be, hey, I saw you drilling that move, and, you know, first couple times you were struggling through it, but it looked like by the end of it you were doing great. And that could be a lot for your kid to help them with their confidence.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Talked a lot about that. I think that's
Yeah.
pretty good. Staying consistent is our next one.
2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all.
I would recommend 2 to 3 times a week. Most of the kids, when they're leaving the mat or toward the end of class, are always so happy and stuff. It might be a pain to get them to come to class in the beginning because, hey, they want to be on their tablets all day. They you know, I remember when I was a kid, if my dad gave me an option of doing something or staying home and playing video games all day, I would have always picked playing video games all day. Even if by the end of it I really enjoyed what we did, you know, that's just how kids are. So I know it could be a struggle for a lot of parents to get their kids, especially right after school, to come here.
Yeah.
But you'll see the progression in jiu-jitsu and hopefully in other aspects of their life if you stay consistent, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you never have to take time off. Like some parents, hey, my kid does football, my kid does cheerleading. All right, we could freeze for 2-3 months,
Yeah.
you know. But then afterwards, come back during the off season. Stay consistent, making sure that your child gets as much training time as possible. Always helps their progression.
Yep. Right. Next thing is that this takes time. And I think this is good for kids and adults.
Yeah.
Learning anything, I think it's important to know that it takes time. There's like beginners and everything, but fighting especially, there's just always going to be someone out there who's like bigger, better, stronger,
Yeah.
keeping you down, and it just takes years to like work that technique to get it to a point where you can beat those bigger, stronger, faster people.
So just us three alone, we have pretty close, if not more than 40 years worth of jiu-jitsu experience
Yeah.
sitting here. You know, we're all over a decade worth of training. So it took us
And I'm just okay.
Yeah. It took us a real long time, and we all still, especially if you're a parent that doesn't see the adult classes, like all three of us get tapped out and get beat during regular practice. Like that's not a bad thing. Like it happens, you
Or an
know.
uncommon thing.
Yeah, an uncommon thing. Yeah. So it does take a really, really long time. You know, a lot of even the adults, it takes. If somebody's like, my main goal is to get out of mount, how long do you think it would take for them to just focus on getting out of mount to be able to get out of mount? At least a
Could be
year.
yeah,
At
could be a long
least?
time.
That's
you
like
know?
a fast pace. Like
Yeah.
we're teaching these kids to get to dominant position. So if you see your kid on bottom stuck and be like, well, why isn't he getting out? Well, it's hard to get out. The kid on top's in a dominant position. It's called a dominant position for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's very hard to get another human being off of you.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of skill and training to do that. It takes a lot of skill and training to take another human being down that knows what they're doing.
Yeah,
You
that's
know?
where it like really levels up. Like the jiu-jitsu is so good for the trained person against the untrained person. Like getting out of a bad position could be very fast, but then as soon as you give that other person like even like 6 months of decent training, like consistent training, then it gets like a lot harder to get that person off of you.
Yeah.
If they solidify that position.
Yeah.
And that's true for kids and adults. So.
Yeah. It's a lot of learning how to adapt and react to different situations.
Yeah.
And you only learn how to do that stuff by repetition and the consistency and a lot of what we already talked about.
Yeah.
And just being in the class.
Mhm. Absolutely. Next thing is use our video library. I think a lot of people are surprised to learn that we have one, but we do have one. If you go on our website, scrantonmma.com, register, sign up. We have to approve you, but then after that, you could just like go in and search. Like this week, we're doing the Upa roll or trap and roll. So just look at whatever we're teaching that week, and then type it in the search bar, and then it's right there. And usually there's like multiple videos.
Yeah, because we do have a set curriculum that we cycle through.
Yeah.
Right. So, for the 4 to 6 year olds, it's a smaller curriculum, but for the 7 to 12-year-olds, it's the exact same adult curriculum, just slowed down a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. So when Jess posts, if you're not part of our Facebook members group, do so. It'll take a second for you to approve. It's like Scranton MMA members page or members group.
Scranton MMA members.
Yeah, Scranton
on
MMA
Facebook.
members. But every Monday, Jess posts what we're going over in class, and that includes the 4 to 6 year olds and the 7 to 12-year-olds. So, like Jess was saying, if you see Upas on there, even if it's in the beginning of week, even before class, and you want to show your kid, like on the drive here, like, hey, look at the move, just so you could get some idea of what's going on before they teach it, because it's us teaching that move. We add in a little extra steps, or we go more in depth. I shouldn't say add extra steps. We go more in depth on certain details, because it is, most of those recordings are from the adult classes, but that will just help benefit your child.
Yeah, it's all the same stuff.
Yep.
Next thing is let the coaches coach. So unless you have training in jiu-jitsu, it's going to be a little difficult to like coach your kid through one of these techniques. And that's why we're here.
Yeah.
You know?
I think the biggest thing is, like Jess said, unless you train, you don't really know what's going on. And that's not a bad thing, right? Unless you were a world-class soccer player, if you put your kid in soccer, you kind of have an idea of what's going on. But in actuality, the coaches know a lot more. They have a lot more experience. They probably played soccer more than you. You know what I mean? So you wouldn't be like, oh, well,
I don't even know any soccer.
Yeah, I
terms.
really don't know soccer. But
Kick it really
Yeah.
hard. I don't know.
But just trust us. You brought your children here for a reason. There's so many people that trust us as coaches, not only kids but adults, and they saw the progress. So just trust us in our process of how to get your child better at defending themselves at jiu-jitsu, at martial arts.
Yeah, I think what you said right at the very end there is really important. You got to trust the process. So it goes along with, again, everything that we're talking about now, but talking about in the video, all the previous points, but you got to trust the process. Keep in mind, this stuff takes time to get really good at it, and the longer that they're in training, the better they're going to get, but you got to trust the process. Again, like something like getting out of mount isn't easy. but eventually you're gonna start to kind of get it, and it's gonna click, and then things will start to get a little bit easier. And again, the coaches are there. That's why we do with the sparring. It's one instructor per group of kids, so that way they could give tips and tricks to both the top and the bottom person.
Yeah.
You know. So
No, absolutely. Yeah.
trust the process.
Yes. And then the last one is train. Get some classes in. I think it's important. Sorry.
No.
You know, it's important to like understand what they're going through out there.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
It's not easy. And you know, eventually your kid will be in the adult classes, and that will give you a great experience to be able to train with your child.
Yeah.
You know.
We have a couple families like that now.
Oh yeah.
And it's awesome.
And it will help you understand, like, oh, my child is having trouble getting out. Well, it is a hard thing, and you know now firsthand experience because you also train. You know, so you training as well, and especially like at home, you could be like, "What did you learn today?" And your kid shows you, and be like, "Oh, well, if you know the move as well, you could add those extra tips of like." Well, don't forget you have to lift your hips up higher, or you have to squeeze a little bit more, you have to pull a little bit more. And training along with your kid will help your kid be able to do better training.
Yes, on the
Yeah,
mats. That was good.
On the mats. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just fun.
It is.
Just do it for you, even.
Yeah.
You know?
It is. I mean, there's been a lot of parents that are training now that got their kids started, you know, and they were like, I don't know about it, and they start training, and they find out they might like it just as much, if not more, than their kids.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. That's all we have.
Yeah.
So, thank you for listening.
If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask any one of us. Either email, Facebook. In person's alright, but sometimes, especially with the class schedule, it's tough to sit
Really
down
break things
and
down,
break things down. So it would be easier if you message us, but if you can't and you just want to talk in person, that's fine as well.
Yeah.
We could always schedule a time to
Yeah.
talk, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you.